What's up, everyone, and welcome back. We are back with the RLCS content. It's been, probably about 2 weeks now since the Birmingham Major, so been a little bit of time to kind of just process things and, relish the moment because personally, as an Ultimates fan, I had a great Major. My team made the grand finals, so I'm really happy. I had a lot of fun with it, but it's time to hop right back into the content. Quick little, side note, if my face seems a little dark, it is because my ring light died, so I do not have any direct light on my face. All I have is my room light, so that's why my light is on and you cannot really see my face too well. I do apologize. This is kind of how it is for at least like a week or two until I can get a new one. But yeah, I guess let's go ahead and hop right into the video. So, as you probably remember last split, I put out a video where I tried to predict the entire, all the 16 major teams as well as the major before the split began. And I do plan on doing that here today again. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. We'll be starting off with the North America teams. And I'll probably go pretty quickly through this because, there's not as much to talk about as before, but as you can see, my NA1, I have Energy still. I know Ultimates just came in second, but the fact is, it's really, really hard to say that this team won't win the region. I have to see it before I can really predict it. Because, I mean, even though Ultimates got second place, the fact is that Ultimates went 2-5 against NRG to split. And the fact is, if you want to win the region, you're probably going to have to beat NRG in the grand finals, or at least along the way, most of that time. So that's why I'm kind of in the, boat right now of, I just don't think Ultimates are going to be able to do it just yet. Because NRG just look way too strong in, in the NA regionals, at least at their own home soil. They've just looked too good. I don't know if Ultimates are going to be able to overcome that. So for now, I think NRG will remain NA1. But, of course, right behind them is my NA2 which is the Ultimates. I still think, they might potentially be the better team, but the fact is NRG has their number. They just, they're favored in the matchup, so it's really hard to not, put NRG ahead. But Ultimates, they came out and looked super good at the major. They took down Falcons, they took down Vitality. They did take down Energy in Game 7. Was close, a few things could have gone the other way, so that's why I'm a little on the edge of putting them, above Energy right now. But yeah, Ultimates looked really good. I think if they continue on their path, they should turn out pretty well. Moving on, we have Complexity at NA3, and if you did not notice, they actually made a roster change. Now, it hasn't been made official at the time of this video, but it has been leaked by Achilles and a few other sources, so it's basically all but sealed, and that is Frosty replacing Razebull on Complexity. So right there, I actually think, based off what I watched from Razebull last split and at the major, I think this is a massive upgrade that really puts, Complexity probably a tier higher than I would have had them after their disappointing major performance. So just great. I did think this is a great roster upgrade. How Frosty, fits into this roster still not too sure, but I think, if he can bring that peak that we've seen quite a few times on SSG, Complexity is going to be a very dangerous team because Razebull, I'm going to be, completely honest, I don't think was cutting it for, I think CRR played pretty well online. Not so great on LAN, but I don't think anyone played too well. And I think Diaz has looked pretty solid himself. So yeah, I think this team, Frosty, brings a bit of an upgrade to this team, and they should be another dangerous team on NA. And then next, of course, I have to go back to my young guns in SSG. With Frosty out, they brought in another one of the young guns in Kofer. And I think Kofer, brings not quite the same ceiling that Frosty does, but he does bring, I think, a higher floor. Kofer was very close to making the major last split with, who was on Team Chicago and Hawkser. So, we've seen that he is a very capable player, and I think paired with Reveal and Scribbles, I think they're going to take a good enough step that they should be able to squeak into the major. They almost did last split with Frosty, just the inconsistency and, due to missing a regional altogether, they were not able to get into the major. But I think with, Kofer and I think a slightly higher floor because of that, I think they will do enough to make the major. All right, moving into Europe. you'll see that I don't have too much different from last split as well. Starting off, of course, I still have KC, the reigning major champions. They did just about what I expected of them. They looked flat out unbeatable. They lost only one series, which was still that inexplicable, regional 3 grand final against Geek where they just came out and smashed them. Still confusing situation, but yeah, KC still the best team in the world in my opinion. I don't really see a potential fall off at the moment. I don't think this is like last season KC where they just kind of showed in the major and then they just fell off a cliff out of nowhere. I don't think we're going to see that. I think Raleigh is just way too good at this moment. Natal has looked great as well. Same Vatira. I think this team is just flat out too good to fall beneath EU1, and I think they're going to be the favorites going into the major too. Right behind them, we still have Vitality, who was the EU2 at the major, but they slightly underperformed after a very good Swiss, where they went 3-0 and beat 3 top 8 teams. I believe it was Furia, Energy, and Twisted Minds. They just kind of crashed out in the playoffs. They went out against Ultimates in the first 2 games, outscored them 6-0, and then they just, after that moment, they were not the same team. They lost 4 straight to that, and then they lost Furia in Game 7. So, yeah, we're just kind of, Vitality just really never, the entire last split, got to the level I thought they should have. They kind of looked like it at times, especially against KC. They gave them some really good competitive series, but they really just never, got to that top tier level that I thought this team could get to. But I do still think that they're going to be the second best team in Europe. And next we have NIP, who I did predict to be the EU3 seed last time. They ended up missing the major because of the EK Miracle Run. And, I talked about them last, in the pre-split predictions for last split. And I said, this is a team that if they kind of are firing all cylinders, I think can be the best team. They can compete with the best. And they just never got there. They just never looked comfortable with each other. I don't know what is up with their play style. I'm not really sure why they, were not able to get to the high level that I think these 3 players are capable of. Especially, I was majorly disappointed with Itachi, especially. I don't know what has happened to him, but he didn't look like, just the perfect support midfield player that he is. He really just kind of wasn't to that level. So that's why I think NIP kind of underperformed. At the same time, these players are just way too individually talented. I don't think they're going to miss another major. I think last split was just a complete fluke. What can you do about Geek just deciding one day, hey, we are not losing, and them just going through it? It's not much you can do. They had their own destiny in their hands, and they kind of threw it away. But at the end of the day, it's kind of just unlucky. I don't think they're going to miss the major again. I think they're going to get back to a good enough form to make the major. So that is where I have them at EU3. And next, for the EU4 seed, we have Dignitas. They did make the major after I predicted them to miss it this last split. And honestly, I was actually really impressed with how this team played. After they had a disappointing first regional, but the second and third, they actually looked pretty good, getting a top 2 and a top 4. I really, was not expecting this team to gel as well as it did, but I think they really kind of fit. They had a disappointing major, but I really don't think that's going to affect their ability to make it again online. So yeah, that's why I think they'll be the EU4. Kind of some outside contenders that I'll go and get to NA in a second, but for EU, I think we could see Geek make it again. They did make the major and they ended up getting a top 8. So I think they're definitely a potential to get, another major spot. I don't think they'll be consistent enough to, so that's why I don't have them making the major here. And then the other is Gentlemates, who I did predict last split, but they ended up kind of crashing out. The reason why I have them as kind of an outside contender this time around is they did replace Radosin with Eugen, and Eugen looked very good this past split. So I think it's an upgrade that, could put Gentlemates back in that major, that top 4 level again. And then as far as the NA, outside contenders go, a lot of the NA is actually kind of in a weird spot because at the time of recording, a lot of there's a lot of roster moves that are going on that still have not been confirmed, so that's why I guess I could be saying that I'm making this video just a tad early, but yeah, NA still has not actually settled down on the roster moves, so really interesting spot. But I think we'll see teams I think some of the outside contenders is probably going to be Genji. You know, they made the major, obviously won a regional. I think Shopify, I heard they're considering a roster move. Same for I think Talk and Com's team, could be a contender as well. So those are some of the teams. Still, it's very messy with transfer window still not over yet, but at the end of the day, what can you do? So yeah, that's them, and let's go ahead and move on to the next region. Next we got Sam, who I think is going to be incredibly straightforward. Once again, last split was pretty easy. I think it will be again this time. Furia is going to be the 1 seed. They got a top 4 at the major. They looked pretty good. They had a disappointing Swiss against, I guess it's just one series. They had a disappointing series against Vitality and Swiss. They got swept, just never looked to be a contender. But then, the rest of the weekend, they kind of turned it up, even beating that same Vitality team in playoffs. So yeah, I think Furia is going to continue to hold onto the Sam 1 seed with Secret swiftly behind. That was, kind of bad pun there with Swift being a player on Secret. But yeah, so I think Secret will continue to be a 2 seed. And I'm going to move through the Middle East because it's going to be quick and easy as well. I think Falcons will continue to be the 1 seed. I actually was pretty disappointed in Falcons at this major. I really don't think they look to be their usual level, especially TRK. I think this is one of TRK's worst lands I've seen him play in a long time. He really just never looked to be, I thought he was the worst player on Falcons. But, I think Rewas and Clears themselves are just too good that, I don't think they're going to get caught by Twisted Minds, who I still think will make the major as the Mina 2. These players are just so much better than the rest of Mina. So yeah, Mina and Sam, 2 pretty easy regions, no real changes. And I think we'll continue to see these 4 teams be on top of their regions. And next we move to OCE, where we will have some changes from at least the teams that made the major. And once again, I have Wildcard getting to 1 seed. So in my last pre-split predictions, I said I had them getting to 2 seed based off the fact that I didn't think they would, gel as well with the, the roster change and then going back. And, unfortunately, I didn't count for the fact that these players are just simply way too good compared to the rest of the region. So they, they did actually not perfect sweep the region like they did all of last season. They did drop the 2nd regional to Scrims World, who, just put a miracle, regional run when like a bunch of other teams did for some reason this split. But, Scrims World was not able to finish the job. And Wildcard once again got the 1 seed. They did have a pretty disappointing major, but also OCE just didn't look very good in general. This major or the split in online either. But I think Wildcard will, continue to stay atop of OCE until someone else can take it. So, but I think the E2 or the OCE 2 seed is gonna be TSM. I predicted them to get the 1 seed last split, and they end up not making the major, but I think they're going to get back to it and they will win, get a spot in at the major as the OC2 over Chiefs. I don't think Chiefs looked very good at the major, and I think TSM is going to come back a little bit stronger this split and we'll be able to sneak in and get that 2 seed. But yeah, I think that's it for OC, and then I guess the last 2 will be pretty quick and easy as well. We'll go move through it. For APAC, I'm going to get... once again, LG came in and got a round 5 performance. Actually, they looked really solid at the major, so I don't think they'll fall off, especially after perfect sweeping the regionals, getting all 3 regional wins. And then for SSA, once again, FUT I think will make the major. They actually looked like a half confident SSA team, although these are not SSA players, so not going to be rooting for them. I don't want them to make it, but they're going to probably make it. They're just better than most of the SSA players. But yeah, that'll go and end up the, the predictions for who will make the major. And now let's move into who I think will actually win the major. So once again, I'm going to have to use a slightly kind of, I guess, janky version of the spreadsheets I use for most of my videos due to the fact that, I'm doing something a little off script from most of the videos, but I get, this works out pretty well, so we can go and hop right into it. So for round 1, this is based off the seeding that I don't think has been publicized yet, but this is just based off the seeding, determined by the Swiss and just the finishing placements. So KC, the 1 seed, also, you know, where they place within their region. So, you know, EU1's the 1 seed, NA1 is the 2 seed, NA2 is the 3 seed, and then so forth. So that's how this all works out. So because of this, we get KC versus Dig in the first round. And I think we'll see KC take a 3-1 win over Dig. Like I said, I think KC's going to continue their dominance like they did last split, and will probably not struggle too much in the Swiss or really the entire major. And I think Dig is just not quite competitive enough to take more than a game off KC. Next, we got Energy Complexity, which is another same region matchup in the first round. And I think we'll see Energy beat Complexity. Frosty's first major, I don't know what to expect from him. Complexity just didn't look too good at the last major in general. So I don't think they're going to be able to really get a round 1 upset over Energy. Next, we got Ultimates versus Luminosity. Unfortunately for Luminosity, I do not think they're going to get a game here. They did this past major against Ultimates in round 1, but I do not see that happening this time around. Next, we got Furia Wildcard. This will probably be a pretty interesting one. We'll see if OCE can bounce back after a pretty disappointing major. I don't think it will start here with Furia. I think they're going to get swept, unfortunately, out the gate. Next, we got Vitality SSG. All 3 of the SSG guys making their first major appearance, and they are going against Vitality in round 1, which is kind of a tough matchup. And I think Vitality is going to end up getting this win. I think SSG will get a game, but I think not much of it else. And then Falcon's Secret. You know, Falcons had a slightly disappointing major, but I also thought Secret looked pretty poor at the major themselves, so I don't think they'll struggle too much. And then we have NIP, TSM. You know, just for fun, I'll give TSM a game 5. It won't really affect things much in the long run as long as NIP wins, but, you know, maybe TSM can show some of that OCE spirit and claw their way back. And Twisted Minds FUT, I think, will be a quick 3-0. I gotta go, like the last time I did this video, I'm gonna have to manually fix all this, so let's get right. Alright, for the 1-0 round, we start off with KC versus Twisted Minds here. I think KC is going to get this win. I don't really, like I said, it's just so hard to predict KC to lose, and I think we'll see Twisted Minds, you know, still not be able to reach a high enough level to compete with these top of the top teams. And then next we have Energy versus NIP. NIP, their first big series on LAN. I think we'll see Nas, you know, get an upset over his former team that he subbed for. If you don't remember Esports World Cup where Nas subbed in for the G2 squad, I think we'll see NIP actually get a win here and get a pretty cool upset. And then next we got Ultimates Falcons. We saw this at Birmingham where Ultimates got a 3-0 win. I think this one will be a little bit closer. We'll give Falcons a game. And next we have Furia Vitality. The rivalry continues. I'm going to give Furia the win in Swiss this time around. We'll see if they meet in playoffs again, because we know who will be the winner of that if it's the case. And then moving on to the bottom, this should be an easy win for FUT. Should not lose a game here. Same for Complexity. I know I gave TSM 2 games over NIP, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, we'll see some of these top teams really be able to beat down the lower level teams. Luminosity Secret, I'm going to give a big upset for Luminosity as they move to the 1-1 round over Secret, sending them to the 0-2. And then Wildcard versus SSG, I think SSG will get a 3-0 and move on to the next round as well. Moving into round 3 uppers, we got KC versus NIP. I think KC's going to start the day off with a sweep to secure a top 6 in the upper bracket, and then Ultimates will get a game 5 win over Furia to do the same. Next we got Energy versus SSG. Energy, you know, looking hot as always to go and complete in a regional number, I guess number 7. But yeah, I think Energy will get the win over there in a opponent. And then Vitality versus Complexity. I don't really see a world where Complexity gets much on Vitality, so I think Vitality will get a clean sweep in that one. And then Falcons LG, I'm about the same way. I don't think Luminosity really stands a chance against a team like Falcons. And then Twisted Mind Dig, we saw this at this last major. Dig took it in 5. I think we're going to see it go the other way this time around. Twisted Minds take the win in 5 and move on to the 2-1 round. Then we got Wildcard Fut. This should be a good win for Wildcard. And same for Team Sim versus Secret. Should be able to get a win and stay alive. And starting off with the 2-1 round, we got Furia versus Twisted Minds. We saw this in Birmingham in the what round was it? It was actually the top 8 match, and Furia took a comfortable win over Twisted Minds. I think we may see more of the same this time around. Then we got Falcons versus NRG. NRG did win this game in Game 7, but it really could have gone the other way. It just kind of depends on who is playing better on this day. With this being an NA crowd, I'm going to give it to NRG in 5 as they move on to the 3-1 round. Next, we got NIP versus Vitality. And, you know, we've not much to base off, but the last time we saw them play, Vitality took an easy win. So I think we'll see more of the same this time around. And we got Luminosity versus Wildcard. We saw this in Birmingham, but I don't think we're going to see an upset like that again. I think Wildcard will get done and move on to round 5, their favorite round. Then Dig versus Secret. I think this should be an easy one for Dig to stay alive. And then, man, SSG going against Frosty to eliminate one or the other. Depends on who I like more. I think Complexity will get the job done and keep themselves alive to go to round 5. Alright, and then for the final round of Swiss, we have NIP Wildcard, which I think Wildcard is going to once again get eliminated before top 8. It seems to be their specialty. And then Twisted Minds versus Complexity. Unfortunately for Frosty, I do not think he's going to be able to make that top 8. And then Falcons versus Dig. Should be a close one, but I'm going to give it the Falcons to stay alive and move on to top 8 as well. So, this is what your Swiss looks like. Just get one, last good look. Not too many upsets, but I tried to sprinkle in a little bit of fun here and there. So that's where I think we'll go with that. And then let's go ahead and move on to the top 8. And now for the playoffs. I guess let me put in a position where you can see it all. Starting up here, we got Carmine versus Vitality to make top 4. And I think KC will take it in 6. Shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. I don't think they really are going to struggle. They haven't done much of that this season, so I think they'll move on in 6 over their foe. And then Ultimates versus Furia. Unfortunately, when it comes to Furia, if you beat them in Swiss, you typically lose to them in bracket, so really unfortunate for them. I don't think they're going to be able to overcome the curse of Furia, so that's where we are right now. And then we have Energy versus Twisted Minds. I do think Energy should take this with relative ease. So that's where we are right now with them. And then NIP Falcons. I think Falcons will be a little too much for NIP as they move on to a top 6. All right, here we are with the top 6. We got Vitality versus NRG. Winner faces Furia. It's going to be a tough one. I don't know if we will be able to see NRG overcome it, but I do think they will as they move on against after beating Vitality to face against Furia. We can go ahead and get that there. And then Ultimates Falcons. I think Ultimates will get a big win over Falcons in Game 7 to move on to another top 4. This is actually the exact same top 4 as Birmingham, just against different opponents, as we will continue to see KC just reign supreme as they take down Ultimates. Ultimates make it a little closer than they did the Grand Finals, but at the moment, just 2 unbeatable. And then Energy versus Furia. We'll have another Game 7 thriller with them. They continue to move on. And then we have KC versus Energy in the Grand Finals. A win we've all probably, or a Grand Finals we probably wanted to see last season. Probably would love to see it again this season. But unfortunately for my NA bros who will be, at Raleigh with me or watching, from home, KC is going to get their 2nd major win in a row. Because at the end of the day, they're just too good. It's KC, man. What can you do? But once again, guys, if you enjoyed RLCS content, make sure to like and subscribe. I've really been enjoying doing this all season long. And I think, you know, these videos are pretty fun. I like to see, you know, predict all of it and look back, see how I did. You know, last time I think I was pretty wrong, but maybe I'll be wrong again this time. But it's been a lot of fun. I'm excited for the next split to start and get back onto the RLCS content. But if you guys enjoyed watching, like I said, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all again next time.